Welcome back. In this session, I'm going to show you how to use copy command to load data into Dedicated SQL Pool. Similar to what we saw in the last session, copy command also uses the power of massively parallel processing engine and the concepts like distribution to load the data in parallel. They offer more throughput, according to Microsoft, than Polybase. And also the main thing is that using the copy command is a lot more simpler than the solution with Polybase because you don't have to create things like external data sources and external file formats and things like that. So let me show you the documentation around copy command. So this is the documentation page for copy command. If I scroll down, you will see it's as simple as this. So you specify copy into and then schema name and the table name provide the column list, which is optional. And then you specify from you want to copy the data into and then you've got some optional parameters. So you can specify file types, CSV, Parquet, and ORC as opposed to the serverless SQL Pool and the Polybase solution. They support ORC as well. And you can specify things like credentials, compressions, out files, snappy compression. So we'll have to specify that as snappy and things like that. And the last thing as you can see here is you can even ask the copy command to create a table for yourself. So you got two options. One is to turn off the auto creation of the table and create the table up front. Or you can ask for the table to be created. So let's switch over to Synapse Studio and get started with this. Again, I'm going to show you the UI to create the copy command for us. So if you right-click on the folder here and click New SQL Script. And let's click on Bulk Load. And it will ask for the compressions. So it's done a few things, but the file we've got is the trip data green AGG, so we know the data inside is in snappy compression. So let's specify snappy compression and we can leave the maximum string length to be 4000 and we can say maximum error as is 0. So if there are even one error, it's going to fail. But you can have a threshold so you can specify whatever you want it to. But let me click Continue and it gives you the option to select the SQL Pool. As you can see here, it only shows you the Dedicated SQL Pool because the bulk load option is only available on Dedicated SQL Pool. It's not available on Serverless SQL. So let's have a SQL Pool selected and we've got the database selected. And now we can say whether we want to use an existing table to copy the data into or whether we want to create a new table. We don't have a table. So I'm going to say New Table and let's give it Target Table name. So again, I'm going to put it under DWH Schema and let's give a name for this one. We can't use the same name, so I'm going to go for Trip Data Green AGG and I'm going to suffix it with the word copy so that we've got a separate table created for this purpose because we already have the Trip Data Green AGG, and let's click on using SQL Script and open the script and have a look at that. So as you can see here, the first thing is if the table doesn't exist already, it's creating the table. So it's looking at the source objects to find out whether the table is already there. If not, it's creating the table and the table created has got the distribution as round robin and also as we did in the previous session. It's used the cluster column start index here and once the table is created it's copying the data from this location into that table and it's got the file type as Parquet and maximum error 0 and compression is snappy. These are the things we specified up front and that's everything. So as you can see here, we got no need to create any other objects. As I said before, when looking at the documentation, we can even specify the auto creation of the table here. So that means it'll create the table for us so we can do that. Let's do it. I think so. Let me go to the documentation and copy the option here. So let's go back to the Synapse Studio again. We don't really need any of these things up front, so I'm going to get rid of all of those things and then we copy into the table. We don't even need the column names. So we've got the copy into this table and we've got the folder path from our container and we've specified the file type maximum error compression and let's specify the auto create option as well. So we want to specify that as on and that's everything we need to do. So I'm going to get rid of that line and this copy statement should create the table and copy the data from our container into that table. And we're doing a select here. So we should be able to see the data being selected as well. So let's run it through and see what happens. The schema already exists so we don't have to create the schema. Let me quickly run this. As you can see, it selected the data from the table, so the table must have been created. So let's go over to the Data Hub and let's see whether we've got the table. So let me click on Refresh here. So we've got the two tables here. We've got trip data green AGG we created in the last session and then trip data green copy that we created in this session. So let's expand and see the column names. As you can see, it's auto-created the column names and the data types here as well. And that's brilliant. So it's very simple. As you can see, using the copy statement, we can copy the data without the need to create external tables or external file formats and data source and things like that. So as I said, this is the recommended approach, but there are some limitations. I would encourage you to read the documentation here, but in both cases you may have to go back and use the Polybase solution. That's all I wanted to cover in this session. But before we finish, let's save the script in our repository. I'm calling this script as 2_trip data green AGG copy. So let me go over to the Developer Hub and make sure the script is in the right folder. So I just pull it into the DWH folder and let's click Publish All. And that's now being published. And that's the end of this session. I'll see you in the next one.